Hello. Today I'm going to be reviewing Love, Simon, which is a romance coming out film on Disney Plus. So without further ado, let me jump into my review. To give a basic overview of the plot, this movie follows Simon, who is a secretly gay kid, as he goes to his high school. Now there's this sort of shared school-based website where everyone posts, stuff. Anyway, someone in the school makes an anonymous post revealing that they're gay. So someone decides to email this person who he knows is Blue, because that's what their email is called. And the two sort of message back and forth, each of them being anonymous and not knowing who the other is. But they message back and forth and develop a definite connection. This continues on for a bit, but then eventually there's this other kid, Martin, who discovers Simon's emails and takes a bunch of screenshots of them and then basically blackmails Simon to get him to help set Martin up with this girl, Abby, that Martin likes. So throughout the course of the film, Simon has to help Martin out and ends up sort of sabotaging some of his friendships in the process. And at the same time, he's also continuing to talk with Blue, and he's trying to sort of figure out who Blue is, which eventually culminates in Martin making this big, grand, romantic gesture to ask Abby out, at which point he gets turned down. In response to this, to distract people from talking about his absolute blunder, he ends up outing Simon. And it's around this time that all of Simon's friends sort of figure out that he's been sabotaging their relationships and stuff. So everything's looking real bad. However, eventually, Simon is able to work everything out in the end. Now, one of the key things that really made this movie intriguing and interesting to watch was the whole relationship with Blue. See, as they email back and forth, Simon develops a very strong connection with this Blue person, and he wants to know who they are. So throughout the course of the movie, he's trying to figure it out. He actually has a few people that he thinks could be Blue before something happens that makes him realize, oh, it's not them. So the movie sort of keeps you guessing as to who it might be. So I thought that was handled really well. Then there's Martin, who is a very unlikable character, but it works for his role in the story. He's just a really awkward guy, and the way he obsesses over Abby is a bit weird. Plus, blackmailing and outing people is just not good, but his character does serve the story very well. I also actually really liked the whole green romantic gesture scene. Basically, he interrupts the national anthem and then gives this great big speech to Abby about how he loves her, and he asks her out in front of basically the whole school. This great, big, grand, romantic gesture, which is the kind of thing you might find in some sort of teen romance movie. And then it goes terribly because she turns him down and he gets humiliated in front of the whole school. Which, considering his behaviour throughout the film, was very satisfying to see him get that sort of comeuppance, I guess. Now, that's not to say he's entirely awful. He and Abby at least do get along after they spend quite a bit of time together. He does sort of win her over a little bit, but she still only wants to be friends. And he doesn't seem like he's an entirely immoral person, but I mean, he sort of gets his comeuppance, so I guess he has learnt his lesson. One of the things I really liked about this movie was the humour in it. There are actually quite a few funny scenes. Simon's whole attitude when dealing with Martin is absolutely hilarious because it's so plainly clear that Simon wants nothing to do with him. He doesn't even pretend to enjoy what's going on, which is always quite funny to see. And there's a few other bits that are quite funny. And the movie also had some really good coming out scenes. Simon does end up coming out to Abby and then later on his family. And I think both of those scenes were pretty good. They were pretty good and they portrayed it reasonably well, I think. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Love, Simon. There's not really a whole lot else I can say about this film. I've pretty much covered all the major things. It is really good and I would highly recommend it. There's also a show called Love, Victor, which it takes place in the same universe, takes place after the movie, but with like a different set of characters, which I will be reviewing in the future. I don't want to give too much of my thoughts on that show away in this review, but I will say that the show was pretty good as well. I'll obviously go into a lot more detail when I actually review that. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Love, Simon. I think it's a pretty good film. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review and found it helpful, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.